Yun's mind raced, realizing that he needed to gather himself and reassess the situation. He recognized that this child Kwang could potentially be the one who would bring harm to him, even going so far as to cut his throat. The child Kwang, expressing gratitude, bowed and thanked Yun. Yun let out a sigh, realizing that the child appeared to be no more than 5 years old. He understood that if Kwang were to die within the illusion, it could trap Yun there too. Yun, concerned for child Kwang's well-being, told him to wipe away his tears and assured him that they would leave together. He gently embraced the child, holding him closely as they prepared to escape the crumbling illusion. As the illusion shattered around them, the child Kwang turned his gaze towards the burning homes and people. Determined, he vowed to seek revenge. Together, Yun and the child exited through the light, leaving behind the illusions. Yun slowly regained consciousness, finding himself lying on the ground. He sat up, feeling a throbbing pain in his head. As he looked around, he noticed Kwang lying motionless nearby. In that moment, Yun's mind was consumed by a dark impulse. He reached for his sword, contemplating killing Kwang. However, before he could act on his dark thoughts, the image of child Kwang calling him brother suddenly popped up in his mind. Confused and conflicted, Yun questioned the tragic fate that befell Kwang's family when he was young. He couldn't help but feel pity for the child. However, he reminded himself that he had only written about a low-ranking martial artist in his novel, and this inexplicable setting was beyond his understanding. Frustrated by the sudden surge of emotions, Yun realized that he needed to come to his senses. He reassured himself that Kwang was just a character from his novel, and he must not lose sight of that fact. Suddenly, Kwang regained consciousness, his head throbbing with pain. Yun, extending a helping hand, addressed him as the great warrior Kwang, inquiring about his well-being. Confused and disoriented, Kwang questioned what had happened. Yun informed him that they had just escaped from the illusion array, prompting Kwang to recall the events. Yun worried about the consequences if Kwang remembered his violent rampage while wielding the heavenly demonic bracelet sword and utilizing the divine cult's martial arts. Relieved, Yun sighed as Kwang admitted that he didn't remember what had transpired. Yun acknowledged Kwang's recovery and expressed his curiosity about how Kwang managed to escape the illusion array. However, he quickly shifted their focus to continue exploring further inside the tomb. As they ventured deeper, Yun and Kwang came across members of the Murim Alliance lying on the ground in pain. It became apparent that they were still trapped within the illusion array. Kwang, observing their suffering, couldn't help but wonder if he had also been in such a state. Displeased by the sight, he expressed his dissatisfaction. Yun, determined to locate the core of the array as Seopong had mentioned, pointed in the direction where he believed it could be found. As Yun and Kwang approached the altar, they noticed a beam of light shining upon a stone that rested in the center, secured by chains. Eager to take action, Kwang unsheathed his sword and pointed it towards the stone, intending to break it and potentially deactivate the array. However, Yun, with a sense of caution, interrupted Kwang's plan. He expressed his knowledge about arrays and requested a moment to examine the stone before taking any further action. Reluctantly, Kwang agreed, allowing Yun to assess the situation. Frustrated and filled with anger, Yun clenched his fist. He regrets his previous decision not killing Kwang. Yun, deep in thought, pondered the situation. Drawing upon his knowledge from the library in their divine cult, he examined the stone and noticed a resemblance to a circuit diagram. Realizing this, he confidently removed a piece of paper from his possession. Observing Yun's actions, Kwang anxiously asked if the ordeal was finally over. Yun responded with optimism, stating that the fog surrounding them was starting to dissipate. Kwang, eager to communicate with the others, suggested pulling the rope to signal their success. Kwang expressed his gratitude to Yun, acknowledging that he couldn't recall the exact details of what happened in the illusion array, but remembering that Yun had saved him. Yun, taken aback by Kwang's sudden change in demeanor, turned his head in surprise. Meanwhile, Sagun, Sian, and the rest of the uncanny heroic squad approached them. Sagun, concerned for Yun's well-being, inquired if he was all right. Seopong expressed his frustration with the reckless behavior of the Murim Alliance, warning them against charging into dangerous situations without thinking. Chun, feeling resentful of Kwang's interference and its impact on his reputation, contemplated his next move. He believed that he should have been leading the expedition in the tomb. Zhang questioned Chun about his intentions, asking if he planned to leave the others alone in their current state. Myung Jae-gal inquired about Chun's suggestions on how to handle the situation. Zhang voiced his discontent, labeling the uncanny heroic squad as parasites who were stealing credit for their hard work behind the scenes. Myung agreed with Jong's sentiment. Chun referred to the uncanny heroic squad as parasites, believing that they would betray the others once the tomb's treasures were revealed. Jong proposed having a plan to deal with the situation. Jong, Myung, and Chun hatched a villainous plan, discussing their next steps. Chun agreed to participate, setting the stage for their scheme to unfold. As the group continued their journey through the tomb, Seopong noticed the absence of traps or arrays in their immediate surroundings. He suggested taking a short break in the current area. Sang, feeling exhausted, sat down on the ground, expressing surprise at the vastness of the tomb they were exploring. Ryuyan noted that they still had a long way to go before reaching the end. Sang chimed in, finding some solace in the opportunity to take a break. However, their moment of respite was abruptly interrupted by a man's agonizing shout of pain. The group turned their attention to the source of the disturbance and were taken aback by the sight of several men, struggling to breathe and writhing in pain, collapsing to the ground. The situation grew more dire as more men experienced the same symptoms, gasping for air and succumbing to the pain, falling to the ground. Chun, pleased with the unfolding events, was content that his plan was progressing as intended. He couldn't help but think that things were going in his favor. In the midst of the confusion caused by the men falling to the ground, Chun shouted, feigning ignorance of the situation. Jong urged Chun to wait, attempting to assess the situation. Myung deduced that the cause of the men's condition was poison. The realization struck them, leaving them alarmed by the severity of the situation. More members of the Murim Alliance succumbed to the poison, collapsing one by one. Chun, in his calculating mind, believed that the members of the uncanny heroic squad would likely be immune to the poison. He saw an opportunity in that fact. Suddenly Yoon, one of the members of the uncanny heroic squad, coughed up blood, indicating that he too had been affected by the poison. Chun and Jong were taken aback, their fear and surprise evident. Kwang, showing concern and surprise, observed the dire situation unfolding before them. Chun and Jong communicated silently, their thoughts intertwining. Chun expressed his disbelief, reminding Jong of his previous statement about not using poison on their enemy. Jong, however, defended himself, claiming that he hadn't used poison yet. Yoon, weakened by the effects of the poison, collapsed to the ground. Suyin and Segun rushed to his side, alarmed by his deteriorating condition. Segun expressed concern over the severity of Yun's symptoms, questioning the type of poison responsible for his critical state. Myung, overcome by panic and fear, expressed his frustration and anger towards the Tang clan Jong, whom he referred to as a stupid midget. He questioned the excessive use of poison, believing it should have been used more fairly. In his state of panic, Myung accused Seopong, addressing him directly of orchestrating the situation solely to claim all the treasures for himself. Seopong, taken aback by the accusation, fiercely denied any involvement, expressing disbelief at Myung's accusation.
Go, go.